Some folks say the hardest thing in life is not losing what you had. It is finding the courage to try again. This is a story about two people who had both lost everything, who met in the ashes of what used to be and learned that sometimes the best foundations are built on honest work and hard-won trust. It is said in Texas, 1883, when a handshake meant something and a person's word was their bond. I hope it reminds you, as it does me, that second chances are real and that the strongest homes are not made of lumber. They are made of two people willing to stand together when everything else has burned down. Nora's hands went numb on the trunk handle. Through the cottonwoods, she saw it. 3 blackened walls standing like broken teeth against a hard blue sky. No roof. The 4th wall had collapsed inward, charred timbers jutting at angles that made her stomach turn. A man sat on a burnt beam, back to the road, utterly still. She set the trunk down. Dust puffed around her boots. He did not turn. The stagecoach driver's warning echoed in her skull. Fire took the Carver place 3 weeks back. She had read Dawson's letter until the paper wore thin at the creases. Need a practical woman. No romance, just partnership. Well, here was the partnership. Kitchen garden trampled flat. Stone chimney standing alone like a headstone. The smell hit her. Wet char, recent rain on ash. The man stood, tall, maybe 6'2", and he kept his left side angled away from her. His voice sounded like rust when he spoke. You should not be here. If you have ever had to start over from nothing, or if you know someone who did, I would be grateful to hear where you are watching from today. Sometimes knowing we are not alone in the struggle makes all the difference. Nora stepped closer. His shadow fell across her trunk. When he turned, she saw the left side of his face. Scar tissue bunched thick from jaw to temple. Old burns, rope textured. One eye squinted from the pull. His hands, though, fresh blisters wept clear fluid down his wrists. Nora Colfield, she said, from Philadelphia. I know who you are. He circled her trunk like it was something dangerous. Letter was from before. He gestured at the ash heap behind him. Before this. Cannot take a wife now. She counted the standing walls. 3. Stone chimney intact. Letter did not say nothing about fire. He picked up a bent nail from the ground, turned it over in his fingers and threw it. Well, now you know. Nora knelt. Her skirt spread in the dust. She opened the trunk. Brass clasps clicked loud in the silence. What are you doing? She lifted out folded dresses and set them aside. Seed packets wrapped in oilcloth. Her mother's Dutch oven, cast iron, heavy enough that her arms shook lifting it. Lint bandages rolled tight. A brown bottle of carbolic acid. She set each item in the dirt, methodical, deliberate, like laying out tools before surgery. I come 300 miles. Her voice was steady and clear. Reckon I will see what I come for. There is nothing to see. She pulled out 2 tin plates and set them beside the oven. His boots shifted in the ash. You listening? Nora stood, brushed dust off her skirt. Where are you sleeping? Silence stretched. A crow called from the cottonwoods. The sound was sharp and lonesome against the empty sky. The barn, he finally said. Barn did not burn. No? No. Then that is something. She picked up the Dutch oven, heavier than she remembered. This needs water. I need that well pump working steady." He moved fast, grabbed her wrist. Not hard, desperate. His blistered palm was hot against her skin. "How much money you got?" She went still, looked at his hand on her arm, at the raw flesh, weeping. "Enough. That is not an answer. How much you need to know?" He let go, turned away, wiped his face with his sleeve in a rough motion, like scrubbing something off. Nora's voice came out softer when she spoke again. "Neighbors offered help? Cannot be beholden. Cannot or will not." He wheeled back. "You think I want charity? Want folks saying Dawson Carver could not keep his own?" His voice cracked, then stopped, like a door slammed shut on the sound. She met his eyes, the scarred one and the good one, both red-rimmed. "I think you are hurting," she said, quiet. "And alone. And maybe that is worse than asking for help." His jaw worked. Scar tissue pulled white at the edges. "Why would you stay for this?" Barely a whisper. Nora grabbed the trunk handle and started dragging it toward the barn. Leather scraped on dirt. Brass corners caught on rocks. Over her shoulder, she called back to him, "Maybe I have seen worse than a burnt cabin." Behind her, his boots did not move. She kept dragging, 70 pounds at least. Her palms were already burning by the time she reached the barn door. She looked back. He stood in the ash, staring at his empty, blistered hands. The barn smelled like leather and linseed oil and old hay. Dust hung in the air, thick enough to see in the light slanting through cracks in the wall boards. Dawson appeared behind her and pointed to a door. "Tack room, 8 by 10. Got a door." Nora looked inside. Saddles hung on wall pegs, 3 of them. Leather dark with age and oil. Floor was packed dirt, swept clean. A horsehair bridle coiled on a nail. She nodded once. "It will do." He brought oilcloth from somewhere, stiff canvas that smelled like rain. She hung it across the doorway. Her fingers fumbled the rope ties. Behind the cloth, she made a bed. Hay bales shoved together. Her quilt spread over them, the wedding ring pattern showing bright even in the dim light. She set the coal oil lamp on an upturned crate, her mother's Bible beside it. Leather cover cracked at the spine. When she reached into the trunk for her nightclothes, her hand brushed against the layer beneath the sewing kit. Paper. Thick. Official. Bundled in ribbon. Bank statements. 16 of them. She pulled the winter clothes over them quickly, pressing down, burying them deeper. From outside the cloth, his voice came rough through the canvas. "My scars. You will want to know." Nora's hand stopped on the lamp chimney. "Barn fire. I was 7. Tried to get my sister out." She touched the oilcloth. Rough weave under her palm. "Got her out. She died anyway. Fever that winter. I am sorry." The words came out whisper thin. "Was a long time ago." But his voice said something different. Said it was yesterday. Said it was still happening. Said it would never stop happening. "Ruth," he said. Her name was Ruth. A horned owl called from the cottonwoods, long and low. Nora stepped out. He stood by the barn door, staring at nothing. The scar tissue caught the late sun, shiny, pulled tight. He did not look at her, did not seem to be looking at anything in this world. She built a fire outside, gathered kindling from the brush pile. struck a lucifer match. The sulfur smell made her eyes water. She fed small sticks until flames caught proper, then added larger wood, pulled out her provisions, cornmeal in a cloth sack, salt pork wrapped in butcher paper. The Dutch oven sat heavy in her hands as she carried it to the well. The pump handle shrieked with each stroke. Then water gushed, cold and clear. She added cornmeal, salt, lard from a tin, stirred with a wooden spoon while the fire popped and hissed. Dawson appeared with the salt pork, cut it thin with his pocket knife, hands steady despite the blisters, laid the strips in a skillet. Fat sizzled and spat. They sat on hay bales, ate from tin plates balanced on their knees. The mush was thick and bland, the pork crisp and salty. Nora's jaw ached from chewing. "Where you from?" he asked, first word since the scars. "Philadelphia." "Doing what?" "Seamstress." She scraped her plate. "You?" "Wyoming, fourth son." He set his plate down, still half full. "Come to Texas for cheap land." "Your father's place?" The word that followed came out flat. He stared at the fire. "He built that cabin in '74. Died in it this spring." Nora waited. The fire cracked. Sparks rose into darkening sky. "I was supposed to..." He stopped, started again. "Supposed to keep it going." His last words to me. His voice hollowed out. "Do not let it go to ruin, boy." 2 hours later, he was gone. A coyote yipped somewhere distant. Another answered. "And now look." His shoulders shook once, just once. Could not even keep it standing. A shape moved in the shadows, small, low to the ground. The barn cat appeared. Ribs showed through patchy fur. It stopped 5 feet away, yellow eyes reflecting moonlight. Nora walked back to the tack room, opened her trunk, found the cheese wrapped in muslin. Hard cheese, expensive, from Philadelphia. She had brought it 300 miles. She broke off a piece. The cat's nose twitched. It crept forward and took the cheese from her palm, teeth sharp against her skin. Ate fast, desperate. She broke off another piece. Dawson's boots appeared beside her. "That is real cheese. Cat is hungry. You brought provisions." She did not answer. The cat finished eating, licked its whiskers. He was quiet. The owl called again, closer now. Wind moved through the cottonwoods. Dry leaves rattled like bones. "You have been helping," he said finally. "Since you got here, have not asked for nothing?" "Do not need nothing." "Why?" Nora looked at the burnt cabin, at the 3 walls standing, at the moonlight on broken glass and twisted metal. "Maybe I know what it is like to lose something you cannot get back." The cat rubbed against her leg, then against his. Thin tail straight up, purring loud enough to hear. Dawson crouched, scratched behind its ears with one finger, gentle, careful of his blisters. The cat pushed into his hand. Nora watched his face. The scar pulled when he smiled. Just a little. Barely there. His hands trembled. Not from the night chill. Something inside him shifting, cracking open. He stood, wiped his palms on his pants, looked at her straight on. Good eye and scarred eye, both. "How much money you really got, Nora?" The question hung in the air between them. The cat purred. The owl called. Somewhere far off, a coyote howled, long and lonesome. Nora's hand moved to her dress pocket. Empty now. But in the trunk, hidden under the quilt, under her winter clothes, under the sewing kit, bank statements sat bundled in ribbon, letters from the bank manager, investment reports, numbers that would make him send her away for sure. She met his eyes. Enough. Enough for what? The wind picked up. It smelled like sage and dust and the promise of rain that would not come. Morning came too bright. Nora woke to the rhythm of metal on wood. Axe strikes, steady and hard. She pushed the oilcloth aside. Gray light seeped through barn cracks. Dawn, barely. The strikes did not stop. She dressed fast. Same calico from yesterday. Wrinkled now. Split skirt dusty at the hem. Pulled her hair back and tied it with a ribbon that had seen better days. Outside, Dawson swung the axe. Charred beams splintered under the blade. His shirt stuck to his back, dark with sweat despite the morning cool. The bandages she had wrapped last night hung loose on his hands, unraveling with each swing. Nora walked to the well. Worked the pump until water gushed. Boiled coffee over last night's coals. Reheated. Bitter and strong. No sugar, no cream. She carried 2 tin cups to where he worked. Held one out. He took it, drank without stopping, handed it back. His palm left blood smears on the tin. Your hands. He looked down. Fresh blood seeped through the muslin, mixing with old yellow fluid from the blisters. He shrugged, reached for the axe again. Nora stepped between him and the beam. No. I got work. We got work. And you cannot do it bleeding. His jaw worked. Scar tissue pulled white. She walked to the tack room, came back with the carbolic bottle. Clean muslin torn from a petticoat hem. Sit. I do not need. Sit. He sat on a burnt timber, held out his hands. She unwrapped the old bandages. The blisters had opened. Raw flesh exposed, dirt ground in deep. She poured water over them. He hissed through his teeth but did not pull away. The carbolic acid went on next. He went rigid. Breath came sharp through his nose. I know, she said quiet, wrapped fresh muslin tight. No more lifting today. I got to clear. I can lift too. He stared at the white cloth on his palms, already spotting red. You are a seamstress. I got arms, do I not? She picked up a charred beam, smaller than the ones he had been moving, but heavy enough that her shoulders burned, dragged it to the pile they had started, went back for another. Dawson watched, then stood, grabbed a beam with his bandaged hands. They worked until the sun cleared the cottonwoods. Nora's hands blistered. She said nothing. Dawson's bandages soaked through. He did not stop. By mid-morning, they had cleared enough to see the stone chimney foundation, intact, solid. The mortar held. Nora knelt and touched the stones, still warm from yesterday's sun. Foundation is good, Dawson said behind her. She looked up. He stood against the light, hat brim shadowing his face. The scar caught the sun, rope thick. Then we got something to build on. Wagon wheels creaked on the road. They both turned. 2 wagons rolled up the drive. 4 people. 2 men and 2 women. The Hadleys. And another couple Nora did not know. Dawson's shoulders went tight. Mr. Hadley climbed down. Big man, red-faced from sun and work. Heard you got yourself a wife, Carver. Word travels. He gestured to the wagon bed. Lumber, green pine, fresh cut, maybe 200 board feet. brought this over. Dawson did not move. His voice came out flat. Cannot pay for it. Did not ask you to. Mrs. Hadley spoke from the wagon seat. Gray hair pulled tight under a bonnet. It is Christian charity. Dawson's neck flushed red, jaw clamped shut. Nora stepped forward, wiped her hands on her skirt, dusty, sweaty. That is real kind of you folks. We are grateful. She looked at the other woman. I am Sarah Pruitt, the younger woman said, round-faced and warm. This here is my husband Wyatt. Wyatt Pruitt tipped his hat. Lean man, weathered. Nora Carver. The name felt strange in her mouth. She had not used it yet, but she held it there. Let it settle. Then she spoke the words she had prepared since she first saw the lumber. We will trade labor come harvest. Dawson is good with a hammer. Hadley's eyebrows went up. That so? That is so. Nora's voice stayed steady, met his eyes direct. Hadley looked at Dawson. Dawson stared at the ground. The flush crept up past his collar. His hands fisted, opened, fisted again. Blood seeped through the bandages, but he did not contradict her, did not say a word. Well then, Hadley slapped the wagon rail. Let us get this unloaded. The men worked. Dawson moved like his joints had rusted stiff. Mechanical. Each board the neighbors stacked, his shoulders hunched lower. Nora saw it all. The gratitude at war with the shame. The need fighting the pride. Mrs. Hadley appeared beside Nora, handed her a cloth-wrapped bundle. Cornbread, still warm. Thank you, Nora said. You need anything else? You come to town. Cooper's Mercantile. I run it. Nora met her eyes. Sharp eyes, knowing eyes. I will remember that. The wagons pulled away. Dust rose behind them. Nora and Dawson stood in the yard, surrounded by lumber. Good lumber. Expensive lumber. Dawson's face looked like something had been carved out of the inside of him. Hollow, raw, then hoofbeats, coming from the opposite direction. A single rider on a tall bay horse. Good saddle. Good boots. String tie. The man rode up slow and easy, like a man who owned the road and everything beside it. Carver. The voice carried authority and something sharper underneath. Satisfaction, maybe. The pleasure of seeing someone lower than you. Mr. Holt. Dawson straightened. Virgil Holt did not dismount. He looked down from the saddle at the burnt cabin, at the stacked lumber, at Nora. His eyes were the color of creek water in winter, gray and cold. Heard you are rebuilding. Ambitious, considering. He let the word hang. I also heard you got yourself a wife. I did. Well, Holt smiled. It did not touch his eyes. I came to make you a fair offer, Carver. Same one I made your father before he passed. This land sits on the only good water for 2 miles in any direction. Come drought, and drought is coming, you will not have the means to hold it. I am offering you 50 cents an acre. That is more than generous for burnt ground. It is not for sale. Your father said the same thing. Look where that got him. Nora felt Dawson go rigid beside her, every muscle locked. Holt turned his gaze to Nora, measured her up and down. Ma'am, you seem like a sensible woman. I hope you know what you are stepping into. A man with no house, no money, and no prospects. is not much of a husband. A man who keeps his word is plenty." Nora's voice came out calm and level, though her heart hammered against her ribs. Holt's smile flickered. Something colder passed behind his eyes. He gathered his reins. "Drought is coming, Carver. The creek will dry. The well will weaken. And when it does, that water source on your North 40 is going to matter more than pride." He turned the horse. "I will be back. I always come back." He rode away, slow, like a man who had all the time in the world. Dawson stood motionless until the hoofbeats faded. His hands trembled, not from pain this time. "He wanted this land from my father," he said, voice barely audible. "They were partners once, years ago. Pa broke it off when Holt tried to cheat the Pruitt family out of their water rights. Holt never forgave him." Nora looked at the road where dust still hung in the air, at the lumber stacked in the yard, at the man beside her, scarred and blistered and standing on ground that someone else wanted to take. "Then we build fast," she said. Dawson looked at her, really looked, for the first time without turning his scarred side away. "Why are you here, Nora?" "The truth." She thought of the bank statements in the trunk, of James Henderson and his gambling debts and the banker's daughter, of Philadelphia, and every room that felt empty after her father died, of the letter she had read until the paper wore thin. "Need a practical woman." "Because your letter did not ask about money," she said. "Did not ask about family or prospects or what I could bring. Just asked if I could work, if I was practical." He held her eyes for a long time. The wind moved through the cottonwoods. The cat wound between their legs, purring. "All right," he said finally. Something shifted in his voice. Not trust. Not yet. But the door had opened, just a crack, just enough for light to get through. "All right then, we build." And behind them, in the barn, in the trunk with the broken brass clasp, under the quilt, and the winter clothes and the sewing kit, 16 bank statements sat bundled in ribbon. $23,000. 3 buildings in Philadelphia. Investment reports from a bank manager who wrote every month asking for instructions. Nora Colfield Carver had more money than most folks in this county would see in 10 lifetimes, and she had not told him a word of it. Not yet. The days that followed ran together like water over stone. They worked dawn to dusk. The June sun beat down without mercy, and by the second morning, Nora stopped counting the blisters on her palms. They would heal or they would not. Either way, the work continued. Dawson showed her how to use the draw knife, cherry handle worn smooth from years of his father's grip. He stood behind her, put his hands over hers on the tool. Like this. His chest pressed against her back, his breath warm on her neck. The scar side of his face near her ear, she could feel the texture of it without looking, the roughness, the history written on his skin. She pulled the blade. It caught, jumped, gouged the wood deep. "Slower," he said, voice rough. "Let the tool do the work." She tried again. The blade, skipped, cut, crooked. His hands tightened over hers, drew the blade together, wood curled away, pale and fragrant, falling at their feet like ribbon. Feel that? She nodded, felt something else too, the tremor in his jaw against her temple. Small, barely there. A man holding himself still because he did not trust what would happen if he moved. He stepped back fast, like he had been burnt. The word carried weight for a man like Dawson Carver. You try. Nora gripped the draw knife. Her hands fit the worn places his hands had made. Years of his grip shaping the wood, and now her fingers settling into those same grooves. She pulled. The blade caught again. Do not force it, she tried softer. The blade moved an inch, jerked, stopped. Dawson picked up his father's carpentry square from where she had found it in the rubble. Brass corners dull with age. He held it like something sacred, like the last relic of a church that had burned. Takes practice. Do not expect perfection. First try. Nora tried again. This time the blade moved smooth. A thin curl of pine fell at her feet. She stared at it. Good, he said. One word. But the way he said it, like he meant more than the wood. By the end of the first week, they had the foundation cleared and staked. Nora's hands blistered, then the blisters broke, then the raw skin underneath toughened into something new. Not calluses yet. Something between soft and hard. Between who she had been and who she was becoming. By mid-July, the first wall frames rose against the sky. Dawson worked steadier now. His hands had healed to thick calluses, the blisters a memory written in scar tissue. More scars for a man who already carried too many. But these were different. These were earned in building, not in burning. They fell into rhythm without discussing it. He sawed. She held the board steady. He measured. She called out numbers. He hammered. She handed nails. Two people learning the language of each other's bodies through labor. The way she would hand him a nail just before he reached for it. The way he would steady a beam at exactly the angle she needed. No words required. Just the work and the knowing. One evening, Nora knelt in the dirt by the foundation, drew with a stick in the packed earth. 3 rooms instead of 2. Bigger windows. She heard his boots behind her, felt his shadow fall across her drawing. That is ambitious. I do not do things halfway. He almost smiled. Almost. The scar pulled and the smile retreated like a small animal startled back into its hole. But she had seen it. She was learning to watch for it the way a person watches for the first green after a long winter. She walked to town the following week. 3 miles in the July heat. It pressed down like a hand on her skull. Her boots raised dust with each step. Sweat ran between her shoulder blades and soaked through the back of her dress. By the 2nd mile, her lips were cracked. By the 3rd, she understood why people died on these roads. Cooper's Mercantile sat on Main Street. Whitewashed boards, green trim. The bell jangled when she pushed the door. Cool air, shade. The smell of coffee beans and dried apples and saddle leather. Mrs. Hadley looked up from the counter. Mrs. Carver. Just Nora. She set her basket down. 2 eggs inside, wrapped in muslin. Thought you might could use these. Hadley picked one up, cracked it in a bowl. Perfect yolk, fresh. Good. What you needing today? Nora pulled coins from her pocket. Silver. Salt and nails. If you got extras. Hadley's eyes narrowed. Not suspicious. Calculating. She wrapped salt in brown paper. Counted nails from a barrel. Added a twist of real coffee. Nora could smell it. Rich and dark, and impossibly out of reach for a seamstress's wages. 30 cents. Nora laid down $1. Hadley picked it up, turned it over, made change. Slow. Your husband know you got money? My husband has got pride. Most men do. Hadley pushed the packages across the counter. Her fingers lingered on the paper. Makes some fools sometimes. Walking home took longer. The nails weighed heavy. Her feet blistered in her boots. By the time she saw the homestead, the sun hung low and orange, painting everything in that golden Texas light that made even ruin look beautiful. Dawson waited by the fence, saw her limping. You walked all that way. She showed him the nails. Good ones, hand-forged. His face changed. How much? Hadley gave credit. Said I could work it off. He did not believe her. She saw it, the way his eyes went to her face, then away. But he took the nails, turned them over in his bandaged palms. Thank you, he said. That evening they framed the first wall together. Dawson showed her how to hold the boards while he hammered. The sun dropped toward the horizon. Gold light washed everything. When the last nail went in, Dawson stepped back, looked at the wall standing. His mouth curved, just a little. The first real smile she had seen. Not the almost smile. Not the flinch that passed for happiness. A real one. Small and new and fragile. Nora's chest went tight. She turned away. Walked to the well before he could see her face. That night, by lamplight, she pulled paper from her trunk. Pen and ink. Wrote carefully. Dear Mrs. Hadley, please hold any mail that arrives for me at the store. I will collect when I come to town. Nora Carver. She folded it. Tomorrow she would walk back. Post it. The lies were stacking up, each one heavier than the last. But Dawson was smiling again, building again. And that had to be worth something. Did it not? She went to town again the following week. July heat pressed down. Dust coated her hem by the first mile. At Cooper's Mercantile, the bell jangled. Mrs. Hadley looked up from sorting mail. Back so soon. Nora set her basket on the counter. 3 more eggs. Brought these. She paused, reached into her pocket, pulled out a gold coin. Double eagle. $20. Laid it on the counter between them. The coin caught the light. Gleamed against the dark wood. Hadley went still. Her eyes moved from the coin to Nora's face. Back to the coin. She picked it up slow. Turned it over. Bit the edge. Her teeth marks showed faint in soft gold. Where did you get this? Old employer back in Philadelphia. Nora's voice stayed level, practiced. Owed me for piecework. Letter just caught up with me. Hadley set the coin down. Her fingers stayed on it. What you needing? Window glass, 4 panes, and fabric for curtains if you got any. Hadley's eyebrows rose. Glass is not cheap. I know. 4 windows run about $12. Fabric, another 3. That is fine. Hadley opened a ledger, wrote slow, her pen scratched across paper. Then she looked up. Something had shifted in her face. Not suspicion anymore. Something closer to respect or recognition. One woman seeing another woman doing what had to be done. Your husband is going to ask questions when Glass shows up. I will handle it. I bet you will. Hadley's mouth curved. Not quite a smile. Something sharper. Tell you what. I will order the glass from Fort Worth. Takes 2 weeks. Meantime, everything you buy goes on credit. You settle with me private. Cash. Nobody knows. Nora's throat went tight. You would do that? Known Dawson Carver since he was a boy. Stubborn as they come. She paused. But good. Yes, he is. Besides, Hadley made more notes. I like watching a clever woman work. Thank you. Do not thank me yet. Hadley counted out change, pushed it across. Buy yourself something nice with this. You earned it. Nora took the coins, still warm from Hadley's palm. Walking home, the weight in her pocket felt heavier than $20 should. Not the coins, the secret. Growing heavier with each step, each lie, each act of quiet deception done in the name of love. Back at the homestead, the cabin took shape. The 4 walls rose. Roof beams went across like ribs on a skeleton. Dawson stood on a ladder one morning, hammering, his shirt off in the heat. Scars crossed his back, old ones white with age. The burned scars from his neck continued down past his shoulder blade, mapping the history of a 7-year-old boy who ran into fire for his sister. He whistled while he worked, off key. But the sound made something in Nora's chest pull tight. A man who whistles is a man who has found a reason. She knelt in the dirt she had turned for garden, pushed bean seeds into rows, corn kernels, squash seeds from her trunk, saved from Philadelphia. The soil felt different here, grittier, drier. Texas dirt was not Philadelphia dirt. But she watered from the well, and the seeds went in. The hammer strikes stopped. Boots scraped ladder rungs. You planting all that yourself? Garden will not plant itself. He crouched beside her, picked up a handful of dirt, let it sift through his fingers. What you got there? Beans, corn, squash. That will take some doing. I got time. She pushed another seed in, covered it, patted the soil firm. He watched her hands, blistered palms, broken nails, dirt ground into the creases, hands that had held silk thread in Philadelphia and now held seeds in Texas dust. You never done this before. My mother kept a garden. I remember some. She teach you before she died? Consumption, 10 years back. And your father? Last year, heart gave out. She sat back on her heels, brushed dirt on her skirt. That is when I answered your letter. Did not have nothing keeping me there no more. He stood, offered his hand. She took it. He pulled her up. His palm rough, calloused. The blisters healed now to thick skin. Their hands stayed together a beat too long. Then she pulled away. One evening, Dawson sat on the porch frame with Harper's Weekly open on his knee. 3 months old, pages worn soft from Nora's reading. He squinted at the print, moved his lips, started and stopped. The he stumbled. Telephone, Nora said, sitting beside him, not too close. telephone exhibition in Boston. He worked through each word like a man crossing a river on stepping stones, testing each one before putting his weight down. His face flushed. The scar went darker against red skin. But he kept reading. After a full paragraph, he closed the magazine. Careful, like closing a wound. Thank you. You read fine. Just need practice. I feel stupid. You are not stupid. You are learning. There is a difference. He looked at her, really looked. Why you really answer my letter? Nora thought of James Henderson, of finding out about the banker's daughter, of the ring she had thrown into the Delaware River, of realizing no one in Philadelphia saw her, just her money. Why did you really write it? She said instead. He smiled, small. Touche. They sat quiet. Crickets started up. The first stars appeared, scattered across the Texas sky like salt flung from God's hand. The glass arrived first week of August. Hadley's boy delivered it on a wagon. 4 windows, 4 panes each, wrapped in burlap and straw. Dawson stood in the yard when the wagon pulled up, looked at the wrapped bundles, at Nora, back at the bundles. The boy handed him a bill, marked paid in full. Dawson's jaw went tight. He helped unload, said nothing. After the wagon left, he turned to Nora. How much you got saved? Some. How much is some? She met his eyes. Enough for windows. He looked at the glass, at her. Something shifted in his face. A question forming that he was not yet ready to ask. But the seed was planted. Doubt. Curiosity. The slow arithmetic of a man counting coins he has never seen. He picked up a bundle, carried it to the cabin. They installed the windows that afternoon. Dawson showed her how to set the panes in their frames, seal them with putty. His hands moved careful, gentle. The same hands that swung an axe, that gripped a draw knife, that split charred beams, now fitting glass into wood with the precision of a jeweler. When the last pane went in, light flooded the interior, made the raw wood glow like honey. Nora stood inside, turned slow, saw the space with walls and roof and windows, saw what it could be. It is coming together, she said. Quiet. Dawson stood in the doorway, watching her, the light behind him, his face, shadow. Yeah, it is. Over the next days, neighbors came by. Wyatt Pruitt brought his boy, 8 years old, gap-toothed. The boy ran circles around the building site. Looking real good, Carver, Wyatt said. Dawson wiped sweat from his forehead, left a dirt streak. Getting there. Sarah Pruitt brought cornbread wrapped in cloth, set it on a stump. For your supper. She lingered near Nora, watching the garden with interest, pointed at the squash vines. Those are coming in nice. Soil takes more water than I expected. Sarah nodded. Something crossed her face then. A shadow. She touched Nora's arm. You come by sometime. I could use the company. Her voice caught on the word company, like it held more weight than 4 syllables should carry. Nora would later learn why. The boy who died last year. The empty chair at their table. The reason Sarah Pruitt's eyes went distant sometimes in the middle of a sentence. I will, Nora said, and meant it. That same week, Nora found Dawson in the cabin, on his back under this table, carving something into the underside of the wood. What are you doing? Nothing. His voice echoed off the underside. It is not finished yet. That evening, he flipped the table upright, stood back. Nora ran her palm across the top, smooth as glass. Then she looked underneath. Letters carved deep into the raw pine. NC, her initials. His last name. Nora Carver. Her vision blurred. She turned away fast. It is... Her voice cracked. Would not come right. It is the nicest thing anyone ever made me. You do not like it. I love it. She wiped her eyes on her sleeve. Just got dust in my eyes is all. She walked outside. The well pump shrieked when she worked it. Cold water gushed. She splashed her face. Water ran down her neck, soaked her collar, boots on dirt behind her. Nora, she kept her back to him. I am fine. You are crying. I got dust. His hand touched her shoulder. Light, careful, like touching something that might break. I should not have carved it. I overstepped. No. She turned. Water dripped from her chin. No, you did not. She could not finish. He waited. Nobody ever claimed me like that before, she said. Quiet. Almost too quiet for the wind. His thumb wiped water from her cheek. Rough skin. Gentle touch. A contradiction that defined everything about this man. I am claiming you now, if you will have me. Her throat closed. She nodded. He pulled her close. Awkward, his chin on top of her head, her face against his chest, his heartbeat steady under her ear. They stood like that until the sun dropped behind the cottonwoods. First Saturday in August, the barn dance. Nora washed her hair in the horse trough that morning, dried it in the sun, brushed it until it shone. Her good dress, deep blue calico, saved from Philadelphia. The fabric still held color. Leg of mutton sleeves, jet buttons at her throat. Dawson scrubbed at the well. She heard splashing, muttering. When he came around the barn, she almost did not know him. Clean white shirt, no collar but pressed flat, hair wet, combed back. The scars on his face looked darker against scrubbed clean skin. He stopped, stared. What? She touched her hair. Is it? You look real pretty. Heat climbed her neck. You clean up good yourself. They walked to town. 3 miles. The sun dropped low, painted everything gold. His hand found hers on the road. Rough palm. Calluses. She did not pull away. The barn sat on the edge of town. Red paint flaking. Doors thrown wide. Lanterns hung from rafters. Coal oil flames flickering. Fiddle music spilled out into the evening air. A caller's voice singing figures. People filled the yard. Women in their best dresses. Men in clean shirts. Children running between wagons. Mrs. Hadley saw them first, elbowed her husband, nodded toward the road. Other heads turned. Whispers spread. The scarred cowboy and his mail-order bride. Nora's hand tightened on Dawson's arm. He covered it with his. It is all right. They are just curious. Inside, the fiddle wailed. Couples swung through a reel. Boots thundered on plank floor. Dust rose. The caller shouted, "Swing your partner. Promenade home." Sarah Pruitt found them by the wall, flushed from dancing. Mrs. Carver, you came. Seemed like we should. You got to dance. She grabbed Nora's hand, pulled her toward the floor. Wyatt, take Mrs. Carver for a turn. Wyatt Pruitt already had her other hand, led her to the floor. The music swung into a waltz, slower. His hand on her waist, proper distance. He turned her through the steps. She followed. Rusty, but it came back. Over his shoulder, she saw Dawson standing alone by the wall, watching, his face unreadable. The music ended. Wyatt led her back. Thank you kindly, ma'am. A man appeared beside Dawson. Tall, well-dressed, string tie, good boots. Emmett Cordell, the richest rancher in the county, after Holt. Carver. The man's voice was warm, direct. Heard you are building again. Dawson straightened. Yes, sir. Getting there. Good. I need a new barn built. 60 by 40. Can you do it? Dawson's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Nora saw it. The number catching in his throat. Too low meant desperate. Too high meant losing the job. And the job meant real wages. Real money. His money. She stepped in, smooth, natural, like she had been doing this all her life. $1 a day, she said. You provide materials. 3 weeks' work. Cordell blinked. That is steep. That is fair. You want good work. You pay for it. A smile tugged at Cordell's mouth. He looked at Dawson. Your wife has got spine, Carver. Yes, sir. Something in Dawson's voice. Pride. Real and new and almost too large for his chest. She does. $1 a day, then. Start Monday. Cordell extended his hand. They shook. The deal made. Then a voice cut through the fiddle music. Smooth and cold, carrying the way a voice carries when it is meant to be heard by everyone in the room. Well, well, the Carvers. Virgil Holt stood near the refreshment table, whiskey glass in hand, vest pressed, watch chain glinting in lamplight. 2 men flanked him. His men. The kind you keep around not for their conversation. Heard you are building quite the little enterprise out there on that burnt ground. His eyes found Dawson. Then Nora. Also heard your wife handles the business now. Negotiates your wages. He sipped his whiskey. Must be something. Having a woman speak for you. The room got quiet. Not all at once. But the conversation nearest to them died. Then the next. Like ripples spreading from a stone, dropped in still water. The fiddle played on, but the dancers slowed. Dawson went white. His hands fisted at his sides. Nora could see the cords in his neck, the pulse hammering at his jaw. The scar pulled tight across his cheek. She stepped forward, not fast, not angry, calm, agree. The way you move when you know the ground beneath you is solid. Mr. Holt, her voice carried clear across the silence. That land has a foundation made of stone, laid by Dawson's father in 1874, survived the fire, survived the weather, survived everything thrown at it. She held his eyes, same as the man who stands on it. Someone near the back coughed. Someone else laughed, short and sharp. Holt's smile did not waver, but something behind his eyes went flat and cold, like a snake deciding whether to strike. Enjoy your evening, Mrs. Carver. He tipped his glass. turned away. His men followed. The fiddle picked up. Conversations resumed. But the air had changed. People looked at Nora differently now, and at Dawson, some with sympathy, some with respect, and Dawson himself stood rigid against the wall, his face caught between gratitude and something darker, the shame of being defended, the bitter knowledge that his wife had said what he could not, walking home. The moon rose full and white, made the dust look like snow. Dawson grabbed Nora's hand, swung it between them. You did not have to do that. Do what? Speak for me. I could have what? Sold yourself short? Asked for 75 cents from Cordell? He was quiet. Partners, Nora said. Remember? You build. I talk. Together. Together. He tested the word. Let it sit in his mouth. Liked it. Feared it. Both at once. They stopped at the property line. The cabin sat dark against stars. Nora could see the window glass catching moonlight. The door hung true in its frame. Home. It is finished, Dawson said. Tomorrow, we move in proper. She looked at the walls they had framed, the roof they had shingled, his hands and hers, his strength and her money, all tangled together like roots of two trees growing side by side. Dawson. He turned to her. Close. Very close. His hand came up, touched her cheek. Rough palm. Gentle. Nora. Her name in his mouth. I need to tell you, do not. She knew what was coming, could not bear it yet. Why not? Because when you say it, I will have to tell you the truth. All of it. His hand dropped. What truth? The money. Where it came from. How much there is. I told you You do not know how much. Her voice shook. You do not know what I did. Who I was. Then tell me. I cannot. Not yet. Why not? Because I love you. The words tore out, ripped from somewhere deep, somewhere she had locked shut after James Henderson and the banker's daughter and the ring at the bottom of the Delaware River. And when you know the truth, you will not love me back. He stared at her. Moonlight turned his scars silver, the good side of his face and the burnt side. Both beautiful to her now. Both his. You think I care about money? Everyone cares about money. Is that why you came here? You think I wanted a rich wife? I think you wanted a partner. Someone practical. She wiped her eyes. And I lied about how much I got, about why I came. Then why did you come? She thought of James Henderson, of the banker's daughter, of Philadelphia, of every man who looked at her accounts before looking at her face. Because you did not know I had it, she said. Your letter did not ask about money, just asked if I could work, if I was practical. His arms pulled her close, warm, solid, real. You could have told me. When? When you could not afford to send me back? When you were sitting in ashes, hating yourself? I would not have done that to you. I would not have sent you away. Yes, you would. Her voice went hard. You would have thought you were charity. Would have thought I was fixing you. Maybe I needed fixing. Nobody needs fixing. She pulled back, looked at him, Moonlight and shadows and the space between two people who are almost honest with each other. They just need someone to stand beside them while they fix themselves. He pulled back, really looked at her, like he was seeing her for the first time. Not the seamstress from Philadelphia, not the practical woman from the letter, but the woman underneath, with her own scars, her own burnt places. "How much money you got, Nora?" the owl called. The cat appeared at their feet, rubbed against their legs, purring. "Not tonight," Nora whispered. "Please, not tonight." Dawson's jaw worked. Then he took her hand. Tomorrow, you tell me everything." They walked to the cabin. He opened the door, swung smooth on new hinges. Nora stepped inside. He lit the lamps, all 3 coal oil lamps, 2 candles. Light flooded the space. She turned slow. The table he had built, the shelves, the hearth. Tomorrow, she would hang curtains, set out dishes, make it home. "It is beautiful," she whispered. Dawson pulled her close, kissed her temple, her cheek, her mouth. "It is ours," he said. But in the barn, in her trunk, under the quilt, 16 bank statements sat bundled in ribbon. Letters from the bank manager, investment reports. Not 15,000 like she had almost said. $23,000. 3 buildings in Philadelphia. And she still had not told him the rest. The part that would change everything. The medical clinic she wanted to build. Half her inheritance given away to strangers who did not even know her name. Would he understand? Or would he think she was throwing away their future? She looked at him in the lamplight, at the scars, at the hands that built this place, at the man who loved her despite everything. Tomorrow, she would tell him. Tomorrow. Morning came soft through the new glass windows. Light fell across the pine floor in 4 perfect rectangles, warm and golden, like the house itself was learning how to hold the sun. Nora lay still on the haytick mattress, her mother's quilt pulled to her chin, and watched the light move. The wedding ring pattern on the fabric glowed, blues and whites and faded reds. Every stitch her mother's hands had made, every thread a conversation they would never finish. Dawson's side of the bed was empty, the impression of his body still pressed into the mattress. She put her hand there, warm. She found him on the porch, sitting on the bench he had built from leftover planks, coffee steaming in a tin cup. The morning air smelled like sage and dew and wood shavings. He did not turn when she came out, but his shoulders settled, the way a horse settles when it hears a familiar step. "Coffee is on the hearth," he said. She poured a cup, sat beside him, not touching, but close. The space between them measured in inches now, not feet. The garden stretched before them, bean plants knee-high, corn waist-high, squash vines spreading across the dirt like hands reaching for something just beyond their grasp. "We should talk," Nora said. "I know." But neither of them spoke. A mockingbird sang from the cottonwood, complex song rising and falling. The cat appeared from under the porch, stretched in a square of sunlight, yawned. Its ribs no longer showed. Philadelphia cheese and table scraps and the occasional mouse had done their work. The cat was filling out, becoming something new, like everything else on this piece of burnt Texas ground. Tonight, Dawson said finally. After supper, we will talk proper. Nora nodded. The coffee tasted bitter and strong and exactly right. That evening, they sat outside by the fire. Not the cook fire. A separate fire Dawson built in the stone ring near the porch. Smaller, intimate. The kind of fire you build when you want light for seeing faces, not heat for cooking. The flames threw shadows across his features. The scar caught the glow, turned orange and strange, like something alive. He spoke first. I told you about Ruth. Yes. I did not tell you the rest. Nora waited. She had learned waiting in Philadelphia, sitting in parlors while men decided her worth, sitting in her father's office while lawyers read wills. Waiting was something she knew how to do. But this was different. This waiting was an offering. Space held open for a man to fill with whatever he needed to say. When Pa died, Dawson said, voice low, my brothers came down from Wyoming for the burial. All three of them. First time they had been in Texas. They looked at this place and saw nothing. Dirt and heat and a cabin that needed new shingles. He picked up a stick, poked the fire. Sparks rose. They divided Pa's Wyoming land 3 ways. Nobody wanted Texas. But you took it. I took it because nobody else would. He broke the stick in half, threw both pieces in the fire. That is what I told them, what I told myself. But that was not the whole truth. He looked at her. Firelight made his eyes dark, deep. The scar pulled when he swallowed. Pa wrote me a letter, private, left it with the lawyer in town. Only for me. His voice dropped to something barely above the crackle of the flames. Said I was the only one he trusted. Said my brothers were good men, but they had their mother's restlessness. Always looking past the horizon for something better. And you? He said I was the one who stayed, the one who ran into the barn for Ruth. Dawson's hands gripped his knees, knuckles white. He wrote, you are the one who stays, son. You are the one who holds on. Keep this land for me. Build something that lasts. The fire popped, a log shifted, embers scattered like orange stars falling to earth. The letter burned with the cabin, Nora said. Not a question. Everything burned. His voice cracked on the word everything. His journal, his tools, the letter, the cabin he built with his own hands. In 74, when there was nothing here but grass and sky and the sound of wind. He pressed his palms against his eyes. I was supposed to keep it going. That was the one thing he asked of me. The one thing. Nora set her coffee down, moved closer, still not touching, but close enough that he could feel her there. The warmth of another person in the dark. You remember what the letter said? Every word. Then it did not burn. He took his hands from his eyes, looked at her. The thing that mattered is not on paper, Dawson. It is in you. It has always been in you. The man who ran into fire at 7 years old did not do that because someone told him to. He did it because that is who he is. He was quiet for a long time. The fire burned lower. The stars came out, one by one, scattered thick across the sky. More stars than Nora had ever seen in Philadelphia, where gas lamps stole the night. His hand found hers in the dark, rough palm, calloused fingers. He held on like a man gripping a rope over a canyon. I am scared, Nora. Of what? Of failing him again. Of losing this again. He squeezed her hand. Of losing you. You will not lose me. You do not know that. I know who you are, she said. That is enough. They sat until the fire burned to coals, until the night wrapped around them thick and dark and full of sounds. Coyotes calling across the distance, the owl in the cottonwood, wind through dry grass, and between them, something that had no name yet. Something growing in the space where secrets lived and truths waited to be told. The following week, Nora walked to town with a different purpose. Not supplies this time. Not nails or salt or window glass. She carried a piece of paper with numbers written in her careful hand. Measurements. Calculations. A plan. The empty lot beside the church sat baking in the August sun. Weeds grew knee-high through cracked dirt. A broken fence post leaned at an angle. Nobody had used this ground for years. Nobody had seen value in it. Nora stood at the edge, paced it off. 20 steps by 30. She counted twice to be sure. The ground was level. Good drainage. Close enough to Main Street for easy access. Close enough to the church for respectability. Preacher Michaels found her there. Thin man, gentle voice, hands that never seemed to stop moving. Always straightening his collar, or adjusting his spectacles, or folding and unfolding a handkerchief. Mrs. Carver, can I help you with something? Maybe. She looked at the lot, then at him. This land belong to the church? It does. Been sitting empty since the old schoolhouse fell down. He pushed his spectacles up. Why do you ask? How many people in this town, preacher? Oh, maybe 300, thereabouts. More if you count the ranches. And the nearest doctor? Doc Myers in Fort Stockton, 40 miles. His face changed, shifted from curious to something heavier. Why? Just asking. Nora looked at the lot again, saw the building in her mind. 2 exam rooms, surgery with large windows for good light, waiting area with benches, storage room for medicines. She saw it as clearly as she had seen the cabin before it existed. Some people see what is. Nora Colfield Carver saw what could be. Preacher, she said. The Pruitt boy. The one who died last year. Michaels went still. His hands stopped moving for the first time since she had known him. Jeremiah. He said the name like a prayer. Infected cut. Sarah brought him to me because there was nobody else. I prayed over that boy for 3 days. His voice dropped. Prayer was not what he needed. What did he need? A doctor, carbolic acid, clean bandages, someone who knew how to stop an infection before it reached the blood. His spectacles fogged. He took them off, wiped them on his sleeve, put them back on. That boy was 8 years old, same age as his brother is now. Nora folded her paper, put it in her pocket. Thank you, preacher. Mrs. Carver. He caught her arm. Gentle. If you are thinking what I think you are thinking, this town would be grateful. More grateful than you know. She nodded, could not speak. Walked back to the road with the sun on her back and the weight of $11,000 in her mind. Half her inheritance, half of everything her father had built, given away to strangers who did not know her name. But Jeremiah Pruitt had been 8 years old, and his sister was 6 now. With a cut hand, she had seen Sarah wrap in dirty cloth at the last church gathering, and there would be more Jeremiahs. More children with infections and fevers and broken bones, 40 miles from the nearest doctor. Some things were worth more than money. Meanwhile, the trouble with Virgil Holt was growing roots. A letter arrived at the county courthouse. Nora learned about it from Mrs. Hadley, who learned about it from the clerk's wife, who had read it before filing it. Small towns have no secrets, except the ones you pay to keep. Holt had filed a claim on the north 40 acres of Carver land, based on a promissory note allegedly signed by Samuel Carver in 1879, debt unpaid, land offered as collateral. Dawson did not know yet. Nora stood in Hadley's store, the letter's contents spreading through her mind like ink on wet paper, staining everything it touched. "It is a lie," she said. "Samuel Carver would never have signed that." "Maybe not." Hadley folded her arms. "But the paper says he did. And with everything burned in the fire, who can prove otherwise?" "I can." The words came out before Nora could stop them. Hadley's eyes narrowed. "How?" Nora was quiet. Because the answer was money. Money to hire a lawyer in Fort Worth. Money to request copies of county records. Money to fight a legal battle that could take months. Money that a seamstress from Philadelphia should not have. "I know people," Nora said carefully, "back east. People who can help. People with money. People with knowledge." She held Hadley's gaze. "Can you keep this between us?" "The filing. I do not want Dawson to know yet. Not until I have something to fight with." Hadley studied her for a long moment. "You are playing a dangerous game, girl. Keeping secrets from a man like that." "I know. Secrets have a way of coming out, and when they do, the longer you kept them, the worse the breaking." "I know that too." Hadley sighed, reached under the counter, pulled out writing paper and an envelope. "Fort Worth lawyer. Name is Randall Shaw. Honest man. Expensive, but honest. Tell him Margaret Hadley sent you." Nora took the paper. Her hands were steady. "Thank you." "Do not thank me. Just fix this before it breaks something you cannot repair." That afternoon, Nora wrote 2 letters. One to Randall Shaw, attorney at law, Fort Worth, Texas, describing the claim, requesting investigation of the promissory note, enclosing a bank draft for $50 as retainer. The other letter she did not write. The one to Dawson. The one that said, "I have $23,000, and I have been lying to you since the day I arrived, and I am sorry. And please do not send me away." That letter stayed inside her, growing heavier by the hour. August pressed on. The heat did not relent. Dawson worked on the cabin interior now, shelves going up, doors fitted to frames. His hands moved with the certainty of a man who understood wood the way some men understood horses. Nora hung curtains, white muslin, clean and simple. Set her mother's Dutch oven on the hearth. Arranged the tin plates on the table he had built. The table with her initials carved underneath. N.C. Every time she set a plate on that surface, she felt the letters beneath like a heartbeat. One afternoon, She was hanging the last curtain when she lost her footing on the chair, tipped sideways, caught the curtain rod. The rod snapped. She fell. Dawson's arm caught her waist, solid, strong. He pulled her toward him. They ended up face to face, his hands on her ribs, her hands on his shoulders, both breathing hard. "You all right?" His voice rough. She nodded, could not speak. His hands stayed on her ribs, warm through her dress. She felt his thumbs move, gentle, careful, like he was memorizing the shape of her through fabric. He set her down like she was made of glass, stepped back fast. "Cannot have you breaking before the house is done." The words came out light, trying for humor, but his hands shook. Nora laughed, could not help it. Relief and fear and something else, all mixed together. The sound came out bright, real, startling in a house that had known mostly silence, and the sound of hammers. Dawson stared at her like he had never heard that sound before, like it was the best thing he had ever heard, like he wanted to hear it every morning for the rest of his life. She stopped laughing. Their eyes met. The moment stretched. The sun through the windows, the dust motes floating. The space between them charged with something that had no name and no permission to exist. Not yet. Not while secrets lived in a trunk in the barn. Then Dawson turned back to the shelf he was fitting. "I will finish up here. You take a rest." Nora sat in the shade, watched him work, noticed things she had been trying not to notice. The way he touched his scars, less around her. How he held eye contact longer. How his shoulders relaxed when she walked up. How she still felt the warmth of his hands on her ribs an hour after he had let go. That evening, Dawson went to the barn, came back with something in his hand, his father's pocket watch. He stood in the doorway holding it, turned it over. The back engraved, property of Samuel Carver, 1847, stopped at 3:47, the time his father died. Nora watched from the table, did not speak. Some moments require silence, the way fire requires air. Dawson wound the watch, slow, careful. The mechanism clicked. Once, twice, 3 times. He held it to his ear. Tick, tick, tick. The watch lived again. "It is time," he said. "Time for what?" "Time to stop living in the past." He set the watch on the windowsill, where the morning sun would catch it, where the ticking would fill the room like a second heartbeat. A house needs a heartbeat. This one had been silent too long. Nora stood, walked to him, put her hand on his chest, felt his heart beneath her palm, beating in rhythm with the watch on the sill. 2 clocks. One old, one living, both counting forward. "Tomorrow," he said, his voice low and certain. "Tomorrow, you tell me everything. Everything. Promise me." "I promise." He kissed her forehead, pulled her close. She pressed her face against his shirt, smelled wood shavings and sweat and soap, and something underneath all of it that was just him, just Dawson. They went to bed, lay in the dark, not touching, but close enough to feel each other's warmth. The watch ticked on the sill. The cat purred at the foot of the bed. Outside, The owl called. The wind whispered through cottonwoods. And Nora lay awake, staring at the ceiling, counting the hours until morning. Until the truth. Until everything changed. She woke to silence. No axe strikes. No hammer. No boots on dirt. Just the watch ticking and the early gray light through the windows, and an absence beside her that felt like a hole in the world. She sat up. His side of the bed was cold. "Dawson?" No answer. She pulled on her dress, stepped outside. The morning air was cool, dew on the grass, the garden quiet, the animals quiet, everything waiting. The barn door was open. She walked toward it, each step slow. Something in her chest tightening like a fist closing around her heart. She knew before she reached the door. Knew the way you know a storm is coming before the first cloud appears. The way you know a letter holds bad news before you break the seal. Inside the barn, Dawson stood beside her trunk. The brass hasp was bent at an angle, forced open. The lid up. Her winter clothes pulled out and scattered on the dirt floor. Her sewing kit tossed aside. The quilt folded back. He held papers in his hands. Bank statements. 16 of them. Bundled in ribbon that was now undone, trailing from his fingers like something that had come unraveled. His hands shook. The papers rattled. $23,000. His voice came out flat, dead, like something inside him had stopped, like his own clock had wound down. "Dawson, I was going to tell you. Today. I promised." He did not look at her. Just stared at the numbers on the page, his lips moving without sound. Then he turned to her with eyes she did not recognize, eyes that held something she had never seen in them before. Not anger, not yet. Betrayal. Nora stepped into the barn. Dust motes hung in the light from the door, thick, slow. Like the air itself had thickened with the weight of what was happening. "You said you had enough." He looked up. His face had gone white. The scars stood out livid against pale skin, like they were freshly burned, like the old wounds had opened again. "You did not say you had more money than most folks see in 3 lifetimes." He turned over another page. Investment reports. Property deeds. His jaw clenched so tight the muscles jumped. "You own buildings in Philadelphia, 3 of them, and came here pretending to be some poor seamstress." He crumpled the papers in his fist. The sound was small and terrible. "Made me think I was building something. Made me think I was providing. When all along it was your money. Every nail, every board, every single piece of that cabin." He gestured toward the door, toward the house with its new windows and its straight walls and its table with her initials carved underneath. "Bought with your money. I wanted you to feel like you earned it. Well, I did not." His voice cracked, split open like green wood in fire. "I did not earn nothing. I am just some charity case you decided to fix. Dawson, please." "Please what?" He turned on her, eyes red, veins standing in his neck. "Please understand. Please forgive you for making me feel like a man when I am nothing but a beggar." "You are not a beggar." "I got nothing." His shout echoed in the barn, made the rafters hum. A pigeon burst from the loft, wings beating frantic against the air. My father's place burned. I got no money, no prospects, nothing. And you? He laughed, that awful sound, hollow and sharp, and nothing like laughter at all. You got more money than I could make in 10 lifetimes, and you let me think I was building us a home. We did build it together, with your money. Money is just, do not. He held up a hand, palm out, thick calluses where blisters had been, hands that had healed in the work of building a house he thought was his. Do not tell me. Money does not matter. Money is what makes a man able to take care of his wife, to provide, to be worth something. You are worth everything to me. Am I? He grabbed his hat from a peg, jammed it on his head. Or am I just some broken thing you felt sorry for? That is not fair. Fair? His voice dropped. Quiet now. Worse than the shouting. Quiet anger lives closer to the bone. You think it is fair? I wake up every morning thinking I am building something with my own 2 hands, thinking I am making a home for my wife. And all along, it is a lie. He walked past her, out into the sunlight. Nora followed. Where are you going? Cordell's place. Job starts Monday, but I will see if he needs help sooner. He stopped, turned. The sun behind him made his face shadow. Just a shape. Just the outline of a man with everything inside him collapsing. I am going to work that job, and every other job I can find. Going to pay you back, every cent. I do not want you to pay me back. I do not care what you want. His voice went cold, hard as iron, hard as the nails she had bought with money he did not know she had. I am paying it back. All of it. $23,000, however long it takes. What? What did you want, Nora? He stepped closer, close enough she could see the veins in his neck, the pulse hammering. You want a husband who lives off his wife's money? You want some broken man you can feel good about helping? His hands fisted. Or did you just want someone who would be grateful? Someone who would owe you so much he would never leave? The words hit like fists, each one landing in the place where her oldest wounds lived. The place James Henderson had carved open with his lies and his gambling debts and his banker's daughter. Nora stepped back. Her heel caught a rock. She stumbled, caught herself on the well. That is not why I came here, she whispered. Then why? Why did you come 300 miles to marry a man you never met? A man with nothing? I came because your letter was honest. Her voice shook, trembled like the surface of water before it breaks. Because you did not ask about money or family or prospects. You just asked if I could work. He walked past the barn, past the cabin with its new windows and door, past the garden she had planted with seeds carried 300 miles from Philadelphia. He took the path toward town. You cannot just leave, Nora said. Watch me. He walked, did not look back. His figure grew smaller against the road. Dust rose around his boots and settled behind him like something closing, like a door, like a book, like the end of a sentence that had no period, only silence. Nora stood in the yard, alone. The sun beat down. Sweat ran between her shoulder blades. Her dress stuck to her back. The garden was quiet. The cabin was quiet. The whole world had gone quiet, like it was holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. She walked inside, sat on the floor. Back against the wall he had framed with hands she had bandaged. The cat came through the open door, rubbed against her leg. She picked it up, held it against her chest. It purred. The vibration traveled through her ribs, settled somewhere near her heart. Outside, the rooster crowed late. Chickens scratched in the dirt. Rosie the cow lowed to be milked. Morning chores still needed doing. The world did not stop because your heart was breaking. That was the cruelest thing about grief. The ordinary kept going. The eggs still needed collecting. The water still needed pumping. The garden still needed tending. Nora set the cat down, stood, walked to the barn, got the milk pail. Rosie's udder was tight, full. Nora sat on the stool, pressed her forehead against Rosie's warm flank, pulled. Milk hissed into the pail, rhythm, familiar. A sound that did not care about money or lies or men who walked away. Tears ran down her face, dropped into the milk. She did not stop them, did not wipe them, just let them fall and kept pulling. The pail filled. She carried it inside, set it on the table, his table. The table with NC carved underneath. 3 eggs in the nest box, still warm. She cradled them in her apron, brought them inside, set them beside the milk, sat down, stared at nothing. The sun moved across the floor. Shadow crept up the wall. The cat slept in a square of light. Nora did not move. Then the drought came. Not slowly, not with warning. The creek that ran along the north edge of the property, the one Holt wanted so badly, slowed to a trickle on the 2nd day. By the 3rd day, it was mud. By the 4th, cracked earth. The well still worked, but weaker. Each pump stroke pulling less water. The garden wilted. Bean plants drooping, corn leaves curling inward, gray at the edges. The squash vines went limp, flowers closing, fruit softening on the vine. Nora hauled water from the well, bucket after bucket. Her shoulders burned, her back screamed. She watered the beans first because they were closest to bearing, then the corn. The squash she could not save. Not enough water. Not enough hands. She chose what lived and what died, and that choosing felt like something being torn out of her. On the 4th night, Rosie stopped eating, stood in the corner of the pasture with her head down. Her calf wobbled beside her. Small and sickly since birth, never strong enough to thrive in the Texas heat. Thin legs, dull eyes. Nora knew that look. She had seen it in Philadelphia. Not in animals, in people, in her mother, near the end. The look of something losing its hold on the living world. She sat with the calf all night, lamp burning in the barn, hay spread thick. She mixed a mash of cornmeal and water and tried to feed it from a rag. The calf sucked weakly, then stopped, then sucked again. Its breathing went shallow around midnight, rattling. The sound of something struggling to pull air through passages that did not want to cooperate. By dawn, the calf was dead. Nora sat beside it for a long time, the body still warm. Flies already gathering. She stood, found the shovel, walked to the edge of the garden, dug. The ground was hard, August hard, drought hard. Each shovelful took everything she had. Her palms cracked open where the old blisters had healed. Blood on the shovel handle. She did not stop. The hole took 2 hours. Not deep enough, probably, but deep enough. She dragged the calf by its legs. Small body. 50 pounds, maybe. It felt heavier. Death always weighs more than life. She lowered it in, covered it with dirt, stood over the mound, did not cry. Had nothing left to cry with. Then Virgil Holt came. She heard the horses before she saw them. 3 riders coming up the road. Holt in front. 2 men behind. The same men from the barn dance. Thick-necked, silent. Holt dismounted at the fence line, looked at the dry creek bed, at the wilting garden, at the fresh mound of dirt where the calf lay buried. He smiled. "Mrs. Carver, your husband does not seem to be home. He is working. Is he?" Not a question. "Been working at Cordell's all week, I hear. Left you here alone." He clicked his tongue. "Shame. What do you want, Mr. Holt?" "What I have always wanted. The North 40. That water source." He pulled a paper from his coat. "I have a legal claim filed. Promissory note signed by Samuel Carver. Your husband's father owed me money. The land was collateral. That note is a forgery." Holt's eyes went flat. "Careful, Mrs. Carver." "I am being careful." She stood her ground, shovel still in her hand, dirt on her dress, blood on her palms. "I am being very careful. You have no proof it is forged. I have a lawyer in Fort Worth who says otherwise." The words landed. She saw them hit. Holt's smile did not disappear, but it changed, hardened. The smile of a man recalculating. A lawyer. He looked at her differently now. An interesting expense for a seamstress. "I am a practical woman. I plan ahead." He folded the paper, put it back in his coat. "Well, lawyers take time. And time is something you do not have. That creek is dry. Your well is failing. And your husband is not here." He gestured to his men. "We are going to inspect the fence line. On my side. Make sure everything is where it should be." They rode past her, along the north fence. Nora watched. Could not stop them. Could not stop what happened next either. One of the men dismounted, pulled a fence post out of the ground. Then another. The wire sagged, dropped. Holt's other man kicked stones into the well opening. Not enough to block it. Enough to foul the water. Enough to make a point. Nora ran to the porch, grabbed Dawson's hunting rifle from above the door. She had never fired a gun in her life. The weight surprised her. Heavy, cold. She walked back to the fence line, held the rifle across her body. Not aimed, just present. That is enough. Holt turned his horse, looked at the rifle, at her, at the blood on her hands and the dirt on her dress and the set of her jaw. "You going to shoot me, Mrs. Carver?" "I am going to ask you to leave my property. Once." "Your property?" His eyebrows rose. I thought it was your husband's property. Or does the seamstress own that too? The sound of wheels on the road. All of them turned. Mrs. Hadley's wagon came around the bend, Wyatt Pruitt riding beside it on horseback, both of them moving fast. Hadley pulled the wagon up sharp. Dust billowed. Virgil Holt. Hadley's voice carried the authority of a woman who had sold goods to every family in the county for 20 years. I see you trespassing on Carver land. I am inspecting my fence line, Margaret. Your fence line is a quarter-mile north, and you know it. I also know about that promissory note you filed. She climbed down from the wagon, 70 years old and moved like a woman half her age when she was angry. And I know what a forgery looks like. So does the county clerk. So does Randall Shaw in Fort Worth. Holt went still. His men looked at each other. You have made your point, Virgil. Wyatt Pruitt's voice was quiet. He did not dismount. Did not need to. The rifle across his saddle spoke clearly enough. Time to go home. Holt gathered his reins. Looked at Nora one last time. Asked. Something in his expression had changed. Not defeat. Reassessment. The look of a man who had underestimated something and was now recalculating the cost. This is not finished, he said. No, Nora agreed. It is not. He rode away. His men followed. The broken fence posts lay in the dirt. Stones sat in the well opening. The garden wilted in the heat. Mrs. Hadley walked to Nora, looked at the rifle in her hands, at the blood on her palms, at the circles under her eyes. You all right? Nora set the rifle down. Her hands began to shake. Not during. After. That was how fear worked. It waited until the danger passed, then climbed out of whatever hole you had stuffed it in and took over your whole body. The cat appeared from under the porch, wound around Nora's legs. She sank to the ground, picked it up, buried her face in its fur, warm, soft, alive. The shaking got worse, then slowed, then stopped. I need to go to town, she said. Voice steady now. Steady enough. I have business with the town council. She went that afternoon, walked the 3 miles on blistered feet, blood dried brown on her palms, sat before Mayor Peterson and the council, 5 men at a pine table. She set papers before them. 2 separate matters. First, an anonymous donation. Land and funds for a medical clinic. $11,000. 2 exam rooms. Surgery. Waiting area. Stock it with medicines. Hire a doctor. The room went silent. Where is this money coming from? Councilman Davies leaned forward. Does it matter? It does if there are strings attached. No strings. One request. The donor stays anonymous. Preacher Michaels spoke from the end of the table. Quiet voice. Steady. This town lost Jeremiah Pruitt last year. Infected cut. Might have lived with proper doctoring. Second matter. She placed the lawyer's letter on the table. Randall Shaw's findings. The promissory note Holt had filed was inconsistent with Samuel Carver's known signatures on file at the county land office. The paper stock was wrong for 1879. The ink composition did not match the period. Forgery, clear and documented. She pushed both sets of papers across the table and stood. I trust you will do the right thing with both. Walking out into the afternoon sun, Nora felt something shift inside her. Not relief, not yet, but the particular lightness that comes from setting down a weight you have carried too long. She had solved both problems in one afternoon. The clinic, the land claim, not with Dawson's strength, not with a man's name or a man's authority. With money, she had earned the right to spend, and intelligence, she had earned the right to use. Competence. That is what it was. The quiet power of a woman who knows what she is capable of. Saturday evening, 6th day, hoofbeats on the road. Nora stood from the table, walked to the door, heart hammering so hard she could feel it in her teeth. Dawson rode up on Cordell's mule, slid down stiff, clothes filthy, 6 days of sweat and sawdust and sleeping in a barn that was not his. He pulled an envelope from his pocket, threw it on the table. $18, 6 days' wages. Nora looked at the money, at his face, sunburnt, hollow-eyed, cheekbones sharper than when he left. I do not want it. Too bad. Then he looked around, saw what she had been living in. The broken fence posts stacked by the barn. The stones she had pulled from the well one by one, hauling each up by rope, fingernails splitting. The wilted garden. The fresh grave mound by the squash rows. What happened? Drought came. Calf died. She paused. Holt came. His whole body changed. Every muscle pulled tight. What did he do? Pulled fence posts, fouled the well, brought 2 men. And you were here alone. Hadley and Pruitt came, ran him off. Dawson looked at the grave mound, at the well, at the fence, at the woman standing before him, thinner than when he left, hands wrapped in strips torn from her petticoat, circles under her eyes dark as bruises. A woman who had buried a calf alone, faced down Virgil Holt alone, hauled stones from a well alone, watered a dying garden alone, while he had been 6 miles away, earning $18 to pay back his pride. He sat on the floor, their floor, the floor they had laid together, put his head in his hands. The sound that came out of him was not crying. Not at first. It started deeper than that, in the chest, in the place where shame lives next to love, where pride sits beside fear, where a man keeps all the things he cannot say, because saying them would mean admitting he is not enough. His shoulders shook. Once, twice. Then they did not stop. Nora sat beside him, did not touch him, did not speak, just sat, the way the earth sits beneath a storm, present, steady, waiting for the rain to pass. I am ashamed. His voice came muffled through his hands. That is the truth. I am ashamed I needed you. Ashamed I cannot provide. Ashamed every time I look at that cabin and know I did not earn it. He took a breath, ragged. Ashamed I left when you needed me most. Nora was quiet for a long time. The watch ticked on the windowsill. The cat purred at the foot of the bed. Outside, the wind moved through dry grass. "If I had tried to build that cabin alone," she said, "it would have fallen down in the first wind. The money is just paper, Dawson. You made it into something real." He looked up, eyes red, wet, the scars on his face glistening. "I grew up watching men court my money," she said. "Not me. My money. James Henderson asked me to marry him. Gave me a ring. Then I found out he was courting the banker's daughter the whole time. Wanted my inheritance to pay his gambling debts." Her voice steadied. "I came here because your letter did not ask about money, just asked if I could work." "The Pruitt boy," he said then, quiet, almost to himself. "Jeremiah. If there had been a doctor." She had not mentioned the clinic, had not said a word about it. He found it on his own, arrived there by himself. Through the shame and the anger and the 6 days of swinging a hammer for another man's wages, he had come to the same place she had come to weeks ago. Some things are worth more than pride. "I talked to the town council," Nora said. "Anonymous donation, $11,000. He stared at her. "Half. Half. And the land claim? Holt's note? Lawyer in Fort Worth confirmed it is forged. I gave the findings to the council." "You did all that while I was gone." "I did." He was quiet. Then something moved across his face. Not anger this time, not shame. Something rarer, something harder to name. Awe. The look of a man seeing clearly for the first time. "Tomorrow," he said, voice raw but steady. "We go to the bank. Put everything in both names. Equal partners." Equal. Equal. He took her hand. She laced her fingers through his. Callus against callus. Scar against scar. Two people who had built something from nothing and almost lost it and were now choosing, deliberately and with full knowledge of what it cost, to hold on. The watch ticked. The wind blew. The night came down around them like a blanket, dark and heavy and full of stars. And somewhere in that darkness, something that had been broken began, slowly, to mend. They rode to town together the next morning. Cordell's mule plodding between them on the road, Nora walking on one side and Dawson on the other. 3 miles in the early light. The sun had not yet cleared the cottonwoods, and the air held that brief coolness that Texas gives you in September, just enough to remind you what mercy feels like before the heat takes it back. Neither of them spoke much. The silence was different now. Not the silence of secrets. Not the silence of anger. The silence of two people who had said everything that needed saying and were now letting the words settle, the way rain settles into cracked earth. Slow, deep, finding its way into all the dry places. Nora watched his profile as they walked. The scar caught the early light, rope thick, pulling at the corner of his eye. He did not angle it away from her. Had not done that for weeks now. She could not pinpoint when it stopped. Only that it had. The way seasons change. Not in a single moment, but in the accumulation of small surrenders. At the bank, they climbed the steps together. Dawson held the door. Inside, the air smelled like ink and old paper, and the particular mustiness of money kept in locked drawers. The manager sat behind his desk. Thin man. Spectacles, wire-rimmed. Desk neat as a pin. He looked up when they entered. Looked at Nora. Then at Dawson. At the scars on his face, at the calluses on both their hands, back at Nora. "We want to open a joint account," Dawson said, voice steady, not loud, not defensive. His hands rested flat on his knees, not fisted, not gripping, open. Nora noticed that, the openness of his hands. A man who had spent weeks with his fists clenched, now sitting in a bank with his palms down and his fingers loose. "How much are we depositing?" Nora pulled papers from her bag. Bank statements, investment reports, all of it. Laid them on the desk the way she had laid out her mother's Dutch oven in the dirt that first day. Methodical, deliberate. Nothing hidden, nothing held back. Every number visible, every secret surrendered. $23,000, she said, in both our names. The manager's eyes went wide behind his spectacles. He picked up a statement, set it down, picked up another. His pen hovered over the ledger like a bird, unsure where to land. "That is considerable," he said. "It is ours," Dawson said. The word ours came out without hesitation, without the flinch she had expected, without the bitter edge that had lived in his voice for 6 days. He had practiced this, she realized. In the dark last night, lying beside her, he had been turning that word over in his mind the way he turned a nail in his fingers, testing it, feeling the weight of it, learning to hold it without cutting himself. Both of us, equal partners. They signed the papers, both names on every line. Dawson Carver and Nora Carver. His handwriting slow and careful. The letters shaped by a man who had learned to read on a porch in firelight with a woman beside him who never once made him feel small for not knowing. Her handwriting quick and certain, the penmanship of a Philadelphia seamstress who had kept her father's books since she was 16. Walking out into the sunlight, Dawson took her hand, squeezed, his palm rough against hers. Both of them calloused now, both of them carrying the same marks. "Feel different?" she asked. "Yeah." He looked at their joined hands, at the way her fingers laced through his. "Feels right." At the cabin, they sat on the porch. The bench he had built from leftover planks, the cushions she had sewn from flour sacks stuffed with clean straw. His arms settled around her shoulders, and she leaned into him the way a wall leans into its foundation. Not from weakness, from trust. "Tell me about the clinic," he said. She told him everything. 2 exam rooms, each with a window facing east for morning light. Surgery in the center, large windows on 3 sides so a doctor could work by natural light when the coal oil ran low. Waiting area with benches long enough for a mother to sit with 2 children and a father who would not admit he was scared. Storage room for medicines, shelves floor to ceiling. She had found a doctor, young man from Santa Fe, fresh from medical school, needed work, needed purpose, same as them. $11,000, Dawson said. Not a question. Testing the number the way he had tested the word ours, feeling the shape of it. Half of everything. For strangers. For neighbors. She paused. For the next Jeremiah Pruitt. He was quiet for a long time. Looked out across the garden, where the beans were recovering from the drought, green pushing back through brown. Where the squash vines had died, but the corn stood tall, tassels catching the wind. Some things survived. Some things did not. You could not always choose which. "When do we start building?" he asked. "Soon as you are ready." "I am ready now." September came in gold and amber. the light changing the way Texas light does when summer finally loosens its grip. Mornings arrived cooler. The cottonwoods began to turn at the edges, green giving way to yellow in slow surrender. The creek, which had gone dry through August, returned as a trickle, then a stream. Then something close to what it had been before, though Nora knew better now than to trust water in this country. Water in Texas was a promise that kept its own schedule. The empty lot beside the church transformed. Dawson drove the first stake himself. The mallet struck wood. Solid thunk that echoed off the church wall and carried across the empty street. Nora held the measuring tape, called out numbers. He marked the ground with lime powder. White lines in brown dirt. Foundation outline. The shape of something that did not yet exist, but would. By noon, half the town had gathered. Not because anyone asked them to, because that is what small towns do when something is being built. They show up. Men with tools, women with food baskets, children running between wagons, kicking up dust, laughing the way children laugh when they do not yet know what the building is for or why it matters. They only know that everyone they love is here, and there is cornbread. Wyatt Pruitt brought his hammer, walked up to Dawson. "Where you want me?" "Foundation stakes, every 8 feet." Sarah Pruitt spread blankets in the church shade, set out cornbread and beans and apple butter, arranged tin cups in a row beside a jug of water drawn fresh from the church well. "Y'all eat when you are ready." The work began. Dawson showed the men how to dig foundation trenches, 3 feet deep, level. His voice carried quiet authority. Not the authority of money or position, the authority of a man who knew how deep a foundation needed to go and why it mattered. Nora mixed mortar, sand, lime, water, the proportions precise. Her arms burned by the second batch. She kept stirring. The first stones went in before sundown. Foundation corners solid, true. Mr. Hadley stood back, wiped sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief already soaked through. "Looking good, Carver." "We got a ways to go yet." "We got time." The walls rose over the following week. Frame by frame, board by board. Dawson on the ladder, Wyatt handing up boards. Other men sawing, measuring, fitting joints. Nora worked the mortar between the foundation stones. Her hands blistered again. The old calluses cracked open along lines she had memorized. She wrapped them in muslin, kept working. Sarah brought water in stoneware jugs, watched Nora's hands with concern. "You need to rest." "I am fine." "You are bleeding through the cloth." Nora looked at her hands. Red spots on white muslin, spreading like small flowers. She wrapped them tighter, kept mixing. By the second week of September, 4 walls stood. Rough but straight. Roof beams laid across the top like ribs on a body learning to breathe. Preacher Michaels walked to the site after Sunday service, stood looking at the structure rising beside his church. His hands, for once, were still. "The Lord's work," he said. Quiet, like a prayer that had escaped before he meant to speak it. Dawson, nailing shingles above, called down, "Just a building, preacher." "No." Michaels shook his head. Sunlight caught the moisture in his eyes. "It is hope. Hope that help is near when trouble comes." The roof went on, shingles tight. Dawson tested each one, pressing with his thumb, making sure the overlap would hold against rain and wind and the particular violence of Texas weather that could undo in one afternoon what took weeks to build. Inside, he built exam tables. Smooth pine, sturdy, legs joined with mortise and tenon the way his father had taught him. No nails in the joints, just wood fitted to wood so precisely you could not slide a hair between them. His father would have approved. That thought came to him while he was sanding the surface, and for the first time it did not hurt. It warmed. Nora sewed curtains for the clinic windows, white muslin, clean and simple. She hung them herself, standing on a chair that Dawson held steady with both hands, and when she reached up, the light caught the fabric and turned it luminous, and for a moment the room looked like something holy, like a place where good things could happen. A wagon arrived from Fort Worth the following week. Medical supplies packed careful in straw, glass bottles of carbolic acid, amber and sturdy, laudanum in brown bottles sealed with wax, quinine powder in paper packets, bandages in rolls, white as new snow, surgical tools wrapped in oilcloth, each one gleaming with the cold authority of instruments that could save a life or end suffering. The bill came to $400. Nora paid it from the bank account. The check had both names, Dawson Carver and Nora Carver. He signed beside her signature, his hand steady, no hesitation, no flinch. That evening they walked through the finished building together, just the two of them. The light coming through the west windows turned everything gold. Dawson ran his hand along the door frame he had built. Nora straightened a curtain that did not need straightening. They met in the center of the waiting room, stood there, looking at what they had made. "Your father," Nora said. "He told you to build something that lasts." Dawson looked around the room, at the walls, the windows, the shelves, the exam tables with their perfect joints. "I think this counts," he said. The day Virgil Holt came for the last time, the clinic stood complete. Fresh pine walls catching the September sun. Glass windows reflecting sky. The smell of new wood and putty and possibility hanging in the air like a promise. Holt rode up slow, dismounted at the edge of the lot. He had been to see the sheriff, had received the letter from the county clerk. The promissory note rejected. His claim dismissed. Investigation into forgery ongoing. He stood in the street, dust on his good boots, and looked at the building rising beside the church. At the men still working on the finishing touches, at the women setting out food, at the town that had come together around something he could not buy or threaten or take. He looked up. Dawson stood on the roof, hammer in hand, shingles at his feet. He looked down at Holt, and for the first time since Nora had known him, Dawson did not turn his face, did not angle the scar away. He looked at Virgil Holt with both eyes, the good one and the scarred one. Let the man see all of him. The burns, the blisters turned to calluses, the set of his jaw, the steady gaze of a man who had nothing left to hide and nothing left to prove. Carver. "Holt, you think you have won something here. I do not think about winning, Mr. Holt." Dawson's voice carried clear across the lot, calm, not cold, not angry. The voice of a man who had stopped fighting himself and could now afford to be generous with everyone else. "I think about building. That is all I have ever known how to do." Holt looked at the clinic, at the town gathered around it, at Sarah Pruitt holding her daughter's hand, the girl's palm still bandaged from a cut that could have killed her if things had been different, at Mrs. Hadley standing with her arms crossed and her chin up, the look of a woman who had been right about something and intended for everyone to know it, at Nora, mortar-stained, hair escaping its ribbon, watching from below with steady eyes that held no triumph, only patience. The patience of a woman who understood that some battles end not with a blow, but with a building. Whatever calculation Virgil Holt was running behind those cold gray eyes, the answer came up the same every time. The land was not his. The water was not his. The town was not his. And the man on the roof, the scarred man with the steady hands, was not the desperate boy he had expected to break. He gathered his reins, mounted his horse, sat for a moment looking at the building. Something moved across his face that might have been regret or recognition, or simply the weariness of a man who had spent years wanting something that was never going to be his. Then he turned and rode away. He did not come back. The clinic opened on a Saturday in late September. The whole town gathered on the steps and in the street and in the shade of the cottonwood that grew beside the church. Children sat on their fathers' shoulders. Women held babies. Old men leaned on canes and squinted at the building and remembered when there was nothing on that lot but weeds and a broken fence post. Preacher Michaels stood on the porch, hat in hand. The breeze moved his thin hair across his forehead. His hands were still, completely still. Bless this place of healing. Bless the hands that built it. Bless the generous souls who made it possible. And bless the ones we lost who might have lived to see this day. People clapped. Some wiped their eyes. Nobody asked who paid for it. In a small town, people know. They carry the knowledge the way they carry everything else. Quietly, with gratitude, and with the particular grace of people who understand that some gifts are given best in silence. Dr. Phelps arrived that same week, young, maybe 30, clean-shaven, spectacles that caught the light when he turned his head. He stepped down from the stage, carpet bag in one hand, black medical bag in the other, stood in the street and looked at the clinic, at the fresh pine walls, at the glass windows, at the sign above the door that Dawson had carved himself, each letter cut deep and true. He looked at Dawson standing on the porch, at Nora beside him. "It is perfect," he said, and meant it the way only a young doctor can mean it, standing before his first practice, knowing that everything he learned in medical school was about to become real. Dawson showed him through, each room, each window, the shelves he had built and sanded smooth, running his palm along them one last time to check for splinters. The exam tables joined without nails. The storage room lined floor to ceiling with the medicines from Fort Worth, each bottle labeled and organized by Nora's careful hand. Phelps opened his medical bag, set his stethoscope on the exam table, ran his fingers across the smooth pine surface. "When can I start?" he asked. "Soon as you are ready." "I am ready now." The first patients came that afternoon. Old Mr. Hadley with a cough he had carried 3 months, a rancher's wife with a burn on her forearm that had gone sour, a boy with a broken finger, splinted wrong, that Phelps reset while the boy's mother held his other hand and whispered things that made the crying stop. But the first real test came 3 days later. Sarah Pruitt burst through the clinic door at 2:30 on a Tuesday afternoon, her daughter in her arms, 6 years old, brown hair in 2 braids, one coming undone, a cut on her palm, 3 days old, gone angry red, red lines crawling up the inside of her forearm like rivers on a map, each one carrying poison toward at her heart, the same thing that had killed Jeremiah, the same infection, the same hand. Sarah's face was white, her eyes wild with a fear that was also a memory. She had walked this road before. She knew where it ended. Nora stood outside, watched through the window, could not go in, could not look away. Inside, Phelps worked with steady hands, cleaned the wound, carbolic water, thorough, patient. The girl screamed. Sarah held her, face buried in her daughter's hair, whispering things only mothers know to say when their children are in pain. Phelps bandaged the hand, tight, clean. Applied a poultice that smelled sharp and medicinal. Gave Sarah a bottle of carbolic solution with careful instructions written on a card. Change the dressing every morning. Clean it each time. If the red lines spread past her elbow, you bring her back to me, day or night. You hear me? Day or night. Sarah nodded. Could not speak. She is going to be fine, Phelps said. Gentle, certain, the certainty of a man who had the tools and the knowledge and the will to make it true. We caught it in time. Sarah came out into the sunlight, blinking. Her daughter's hand wrapped white and clean. The girl had stopped crying, was looking at the bandage with the curiosity of a child who has already forgotten the pain and is now interested in the novelty of having something wrapped around her hand. She held it up to show her mother, wiggled her fingers beneath the cloth, smiled. Sarah found Nora standing by the fence. She crossed the yard in 3 steps, took both of Nora's hands, held them so tight the bones pressed together. My boy died last year. Her voice broke on the word boy, shattered like glass dropped on stone. Jeremiah, infected cut, just like this, same hand. I brought him to Preacher Michael's because there was nobody else. There was nobody. I watched my son die because there was nobody in this town who knew how to stop what was killing him. Tears ran down her face. She did not let go of Nora's hands. This clinic, whoever paid for it. She squeezed harder. They saved my girl. You tell them that, whoever they are. You tell them they saved my girl. Nora nodded. Her throat had closed. No words would come. None were needed. Sarah Pruitt held her hands and wept, and Nora held on and did not let go, and that was enough. That was everything. Dawson found her later, standing alone by the clinic fence, staring at the cottonwood, at the way the September light came through its yellowing leaves and scattered gold across the ground. He had seen, had watched from across the street, had seen Sarah grab Nora's hands, had seen the tears, had understood, in the way that men sometimes understand things they cannot articulate, that what had happened between those 2 women was more important than anything he would ever build with wood and nails. He stood beside her, did not touch her, did not need to. His presence was enough. The weight of him beside her, the warmth. You all right? I am all right. They stood together in the quiet, watching the cottonwood leaves turn in the wind. That is what the money bought, he said. Quiet. Not lumber, not nails, not window glass. He paused. That. A girl alive. A mother's hands shaking with gratitude instead of grief. A second chance that Jeremiah Pruitt never got, but his sister did. Because 2 people with burnt histories and blistered hands and $23,000 decided that some things matter more than pride. The sun dropped lower. They walked home together. 3 miles. The road familiar now, every rock and rut memorized by their feet. Nora's boots knew the way. So did his. At the cabin, Dawson held the door. Nora stepped inside. The lamps were already lit, 3 coal oil flames burning steady. He must have done that before coming to find her at the clinic. Prepared the cabin for her return, the way you prepare a place for someone you love. Light in the windows, warmth waiting. They sat on the porch as the sky changed. Gold to orange to violet to that deep, impossible blue that comes just before the stars. The garden stretched before them, coming back from the drought, green pushing through brown, bean vines climbing their poles again, new squash blossoms opening yellow against dark leaves. The corn stood tall, tassels golden, nearly ready for harvest. Life insisting on itself the way life does, stubborn and relentless and beautiful. "We should get horses come spring," Dawson said. "Horses cost money." "We got money." He grinned, full and open and real. "Our money." She elbowed him. He laughed. The sound rolled across the porch and out into the evening, big and warm and free. Not the careful, controlled sounds she had heard before. Not the half laugh of a man afraid to feel too much. This was the laugh of a man who had come through something and found himself still standing on the other side. A man who had learned that needing someone is not the same as being weak. That accepting help is not the same as accepting defeat. That love, the real kind, the kind that survives fire and drought and pride and the terrible weight of secrets, is not a transaction. It is a choice you make every morning when you wake up beside someone and decide again to stay. The cat appeared from beneath the porch, fat now, sleek, a different creature entirely from the starving thing that had crept out of the shadows that first night with ribs like a washboard and yellow eyes full of desperate hunger. It jumped on Dawson's lap, turned twice, settled, purred loud enough to hear over the evening wind. Dawson scratched behind its ears. The cat pressed into his hand. Same as that first night. But everything else had changed. He reached into his shirt pocket, pulled out the watch, his father's pocket watch, held it in his palm. The back engraved. Property of Samuel Carver. 1847. Ticking now. Steady. Faithful. Counting seconds. The way it had counted them for his father and his father's father before that. A chain of time stretching back and forward, connecting the man who built the first cabin to the man who built it again. "I used to think this watch stopped because Pa died," he said, like it knew, like time stopped with him. "And now, I think it was waiting." He turned the watch over, felt the ticking against his skin, steady as a heartbeat. Waiting for someone to wind it again. Give it a reason to keep going. He set the watch on the bench between them. "Same as me, I reckon." The sun touched the horizon. Light broke across the sky. Burnt orange and violet and deep spreading blue. Stars appeared, one by one, then in handfuls, then in great sweeping rivers of light that stretched from horizon to horizon, more stars than any city had ever allowed a person to see. The Milky Way arched overhead like a road made of light, leading somewhere neither of them could name but both of them believed in. Nora took his hand, turned it over in both of hers, traced the calluses with her finger, the thick skin where blisters had been. The lines and ridges of a palm that had gripped axes and drawn knives and hammers, and finally her hand, his whole history written there. Every burn, every blister, every nail driven, every board lifted, every choice that brought him to this porch, this night, this woman. "I never thought I would feel this," Dawson said, voice low, almost lost in the wind. "After the fire, after Pa died, thought I was done. Thought that was the end of whatever story I was supposed to be living. You are not done. No." He smiled. The scar pulled. He did not touch it, did not hide it. Let it be what it was. A mark, a memory, a map of the boy who ran into fire for his sister, the man who sat in ashes and could not move, the husband who walked away and came back, all of it written on his face for anyone to read. "We are just starting." His hand moved to her stomach, rested there, light as a leaf falling on still water, questioning, hoping, afraid to hope. The way a man touches something when he is not sure it is real yet, when he is afraid that naming it will make it disappear. She covered his hand with hers. "Too early to know," she said. "But maybe." He pulled her closer, pressed his lips to her hair. She felt his breath, warm and steady, and underneath it the beating of his heart, and underneath that the ticking of the watch on the bench, and underneath all of it the deep, vast silence of the Texas night, holding everything, containing everything, asking nothing. "Whatever comes," he said, "we are ready." Ready. The word hung between them. Small, certain, a seed planted in good soil. Inside the cabin, the lamps burned low. The table waited, scarred with use now, coffee rings and knife marks and the small damages of daily living that turn a house into a home. Underneath, carved deep into raw pine, 2 letters, NC. Not just initials anymore, not just a name, a promise that this woman belonged here, that this man had made a place for her with his own hands, that together they had built something from ashes that neither of them could have built alone. Her mother's quilt lay folded on the bed, wedding ring pattern faded now, softened by Texas dust and Texas sun, but still whole, still holding, the way good things hold when they are made with love and stitched with care. Dawson stood, offered his hand. "Come on, let us go inside." She took it, let him pull her up. They walked into the cabin, their cabin. The door swung shut behind them, soft, certain. The sound of something closing that did not need to open again tonight. On the porch, the watch kept ticking, forgotten for now, but faithful still, marking time, moving forward, proving that broken things could be mended, that stopped hearts could beat again, that even in the ashes, something new and strong and beautiful could grow. The mockingbird called once more from the cottonwood. Long, complex song, rising and falling. Then silence, just the wind, the crickets, the steady tick of a watch that had learned, like the people inside the cabin, that stopping is not the same as ending, and that starting again is the bravest thing a heart can do. Sometimes a story sits with us quiet, does it not? Many of us know what it feels like to carry something we cannot quite set down, to love someone and worry that what we bring, or do not bring, might not be sufficient. Maybe it is enough to sit with the truth that healing takes time, that forgiveness comes in pieces, not all at once. We do not have to fix everything to move forward. Thank you for staying with Dawson and Nora through all of it, for listening all the way to the end, even when it got quiet and hard.